ones are always the ones that, whether it's Forrest Gump or whatever, if you're playing something stupid, you are dumb. But the way, like if you're looking at Tom Hanks' Forrest Gump, he is a dumb person, but he's not a dumb person. The way they play it, you wouldn't know they were dumb. You just think, well, he's just a little slow, or he's just a little, he's not just, he's not advertising his condition. And that's the problem that I feel like what I have with this show, that I was like, it's just like an advertisement of like, when she switches personality, it's really just switching clothes. It's like so I can see why at one point in the episode the sister believed that she was just acting her whole life, and everyone's else is, because the way that, like, to the ability to switch personalities, like I said, there's just something, it's just, I also, like I said, from the visuals, you don't get that sense of, like, if you can be anybody at any second, you don't know, or you can create any personality, what is that going to be? And not only that, I think another inherent problem, and now I'm at inherent, so another problem is that the people around her, they just don't kind of acknowledge it in a sense, like there's just no, like, challenging of it. It's just like, oh, I'm if she wants to be like a boxer and she walks, somewhere and she says she's, Rocky Balboa or something, there's no kind of challenging of it. That, like, there's no, I think that's another problem, that if this show, I feel, wants to continue and get into a place of somewhere, you have to have a character or create some kind of character that challenges her to go, okay, so you're a boxer, and then ask her questions about being a boxer. Like, all right, well, how many rounds? How many? Because your mind can't bullshit what isn't there. If you're pretending to be a boxer, and you don't, and I ask you a million questions about boxing, and you don't have the answer to it, then to me that is where the show, like I said, from a Coen Brothers, that non-seriousness would be funny. That showing this person who is kind of like a Napoleon Dynamite, that you ask him about, I killed Timberwolves, and you laugh at him because he's pretending to be somebody cooler. But in this case, it's like, no, she's actually lived with this. This is a real condition. So like I said, that has to come out through the performance and the writing of, like, you really believe she's a boxer. Like, how the fuck does she know all this stuff about boxing? Is she going on the internet? I mean, how can you possibly know unless you've actually been a boxer? And like I said, that's an interesting premise to go there and see somebody who can one day be a banker or whatever and use those skills and use those personalities. And like I said, like, that's an interesting place to go. But I think this show doesn't really want to go too serious. I think it wants to stay in the kind of Napoleon Dynamite-ish silliness of, like, all right, she's pretending to be a 15-year-old girl, or she's pretending to be a member of the United Nations or something. And I think that's what the problem is you don't have anybody challenging her on that, and you don't have any character that's kind of like the audience that's just kind of trying to see that, like, all right, well, you're acting. It's like you can't say I'm a Nazi and then ask questions like, all right, speak in German, and then I think that's where the fun of the show would come through, is that having that kind of person who challenges her, and the comedy would come from how wrong she is about things, and that's just her personality. Like, this is how Germans speak German, or this is how, like that, because she doesn't want to she doesn't want to confront the reality of what she's dealing with. So like I said, from watching it, you get that she's been this way for 17 years, and like I said, it's the same thing where it's like, well, yeah, because everyone around her is a complete fucking idiot, that you're just like, of course, yeah, people just look at her and go, she's just changed her clothes, leave her alone, like there's no kind of there's no grit there that gets me going, like, all right, to repel it. It's just like, of course she has the disorder, and if no one's going to acknowledge and confront it or do anything and just kind of give her drugs or you're never going to get any. Of course, I could walk around my house right now. That's the difference. I could walk around and pretend to be something, and I'm going to be confronted about it. I'm going to get smacked in the face, or I'm going to get, I'm going to deal with those annoyances that, people deal with when they pretend to be something in a challenge, like whether you're a white guy and you pretend to be a black, like, it's like, I'm white, but I'm really black. It's funny until you're in a group with a bunch of black guys, and that's not so funny. It's serious, and they're really, you can't, you can't really go there. You can't walk around saying words, like nigger and things like that, which is something that could happen as a potential storyline down the road. Maybe she could pretend to be black, and I guess for the show, every episode, it would probably work better if it was centered around the theme of the personality, and not just switching, but go, okay, today's personality is this, and how does she deal with that personality? So these are just things that like I said, watching it, I was like, there's something there. I can see why Spielberg, and I can see why there was the bones to do something, but it just felt like, those were my gripes with it, and I guess, it's not something I would probably, if it continues down a path of like just going to seeing her change clothes into things and pretend to be a person. I don't know if I really buy it as much. I mean, and I guess just a final thing is, if you haven't seen the movie Brick, which is fucking awesome, I mean, that movie really made me believe that those characters, even though they were in whatever world, they made me believe that this was a detective story based on what everybody around it is. And I think that this show's trying to do something like that too, where it's trying to make you believe that something extraordinary, a premise like this, could survive in a kind of Pennsylvania nowhereville place. And it just seems, like I said, it just seems like I don't really believe it as much, but those were my gripes, and that kid, I thought it was Frankie Muniz for a while because the way he was talking. So that's my review of United States of Tara. Please make October War Spielberg. The end.